Talking about the sports shows, we edge close to the Olympic Games in Tokyo. We thought we'd get some of South Australia's greatest Olympians in. Our next guest certainly qualifies in that in cycling. 3 medals, a gold, a silver and a bronze over 3 Olympic Games. We talk about cycling champion Brett Aitken. Brett, thanks for your time, mate.
Thank you.
Mate, are you finding, getting the buzz? Is it happening for you, or COVID's
very
doused
slowly,
it a bit?
Very slowly. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? So 5 years in the making now. So we're just going to make an interesting Olympics for the next one with a 3-year turnaround.
It's a weird feeling, isn't it? As Phil said, because there's not a lot being written or said, or there's no big ads or whatever like that. But he talked about rowing a couple of weeks ago, and once he started talking about our eights and there a chance, you get that. I'll be in there watching that. But it's hard at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's really
difficult
hard because
at the moment.
Everything is just on tenterhooks all the time in terms of. Even at a local level, we've had our local juniors, their national championships have been cancelled three times in a row, and for the biggest event in the world, the Olympics last year to be cancelled and put back, a year, it's like, is it going to happen? Isn't it going to happen? And then you hear about where Tokyo is right now with their COVID situation. It's still difficult times.
But those guys you're talking about, the junior that had their events cancelled and whatever, how hard is it to keep those guys on track? Because that's what they ride for.
It's almost harder than if you were an Olympian, because the Olympics is so big, and it's you don't need motivation to go to the Olympics.
Exactly,
Games.
yeah.
It's just such a huge event, and I guess that's one thing that, as a local coach, as a state coach, someone that's trying to get juniors motivated to maybe represent at an Olympic level in the future is, but they still want to tick boxes. They want to go to national titles and tick a national championship as one thing off their list. And when they're not running them in this current time,
Makes it
because
hard.
they're always being cancelled. It's really difficult.
Hey mate, we were talking before we went on air. There's nothing in the computer that you've got with all the data you've kept over your journey, mate, either as a cyclist and then the cycling coach. I'll open it up and goes, pandemic. Oh, this is what you should do when a pandemic starts. So the last 18 months for you at SASI as the head coach, has it been flying by the seat of your pants going, okay, I think this is probably, we can't get out on the road, so we've got to train at home. How's that been for you, being creative?
It's been really difficult, but fortunately we are in a sport that is really creative. It has a lot of data. There's a lot of numbers and figures and things that enable us to still train on and have an idea of where we're going. So we have a huge online platforms these days where people can just get on an indoor bike and they can train and race against other people all over the world. And there's all sorts of gaming and online platforms where you're actually still registering your power and your heart rate and cadence and speed and all those things. So it's actually very realistic in a way, but it's
plastic in another way.
It doesn't replace proper cycling, of course. But
and then it's the moving. It's the moving. We're building for this. Whoops, hang on, that's been cancelled, which you touched before. Now we've got to move again. So it's that trying to peak. Oops, no, we're not going to peak.
That's true.
Okay, we're going to peak now. No, we're not going to peak. So,
that's exactly right.
But when I went to the Olympic Games, I went to the cycling, and you go into the drome and you go, the noise is deafening. Yeah. When you guys get on the bike and you're ready to go, it's not silent. It's the opposite. There's a roar, and as it gets closer, the roar gets louder. And because it's enclosed, it feels like the basketball, like there's 200,000 people in there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen in Tokyo. Was it something you fed off in your journey?
Well, to this day, my Olympic race in Sydney was still the loudest crowd I've ever heard in my life as an athlete, I guess. And that experience was what really made that night, and on top of the fact that winning a gold medal in front of your home crowd and your family and all that sort of stuff. But the crowd was phenomenal that night and something I'll never ever forget. And I was only thinking about this week when they did announce that there would be no crowds, and how difficult that's going to be. And I was talking to my partner about that in terms of it's almost going to be like turning up to a training event, but there's an Olympic gold medal on the line, and you've got to somehow bring yourself up and motivate yourself to
not easy.
Exceed.
It can't be easy if the big riders that are used to the crowds and and they get that little spur with the crowds. It's not going to be easy for these guys just to ride around.
No, definitely
with
not.
the manager sitting there going, you know, sort of clapping you on and whatever. So,
So I know the first two were team pursuits, the last one's pursuit, but your first Olympic Games, you know, you go, I'll have a silver medal at that one, thanks, that'll do. I'll just get a taste for it. Then I'll get a bronze at my next one, then I'll get a gold. If you had gone on to 2004, mate, what would have you got there?
Well, I actually did try to go to, I was half thinking about it in 2004, and then I found out my wife at the time was pregnant with twins, so it put a real quick stop to...
I would have gone quick.
It was very easy for me to make the decision.
Quite as enthusiastic about the push to get you to 2000, mate.
But I guess at the time also, you know, I thought about the fact that I was never ever going to get better than that moment in Sydney, and that's always... I never regret retiring after Sydney and completing my lifelong dream of winning Olympic gold. So.
Can I ask you about the crowd? Well, we're talking about crowds. Can I ask you about the crowds at Tour de France? We saw one out there the other day holding out a big placard and bang, you know, one rider goes down, 50 riders go down. That's got to be crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah,
riding.
it's one of those sports that's, you know, it has every extreme in it. You know, 1 minute you can be on the, you know, riding by the beach in 40-degree weather, and you know, on another day you can be up in the mountains in the snow and descending on cold roads and wet roads, and you know, massive cliffs off to the side, and crashes can happen at any moment in time. It's a hugely dynamic sport, and
is it ever? Yeah.
And a very you know, because of how small an amount that you're actually wearing as well. You know, when you're descending at over 100 kilometres an hour, like, you know, it can be a very dangerous
and
sport.
so close.
Yeah,
that's what gets me. How they don't have more accidents, because the riders, you know, you'll have 40 of them. Virtually from me to you.
It's a very fluid, you know, the way, if you ever watch the Tour de France, you know, and the bunches, how they move, you know, they are quite fluid in the way that they move together. A lot of the time you're not looking at just the rider in front of you, you're looking at 20 or 30 riders in front of you, because one little movement there can be a chain reaction all the way down through the back of the bunch.
Exactly right, yeah.
Look at the other thing though, Brett, when I've talked to some of the cyclists that have competed in it, you know, when you talk about the roads, we go, oh, it's not too bad, it's a nice road, but it's cobblestone. A lot of it's, it's not on the road. Mate.
That's right,
You're like riding on the footpaths around Adelaide, you know, there's a few bricks out of place there. That's going to be fair, because you're talking about, I'm looking ahead there, and I'm looking here, and then down here, it's not looking too good at all.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising that there's a lot of the tour riders that are doing really well in the Tour de France at the moment actually have a cyclocross background, so they come from a sport that is almost off-road, I guess, but is still cycling, and they're able to transfer that onto the road. So
how important is the bike in that then? Because we've seen the technology change enormously, even in your time to now.
Absolutely.
I mean, it almost looks like you want to be on a mountain bike at certain segments. And the bikes, you know, they talk about the carbon fibre, the lightness, the strength. What's been the biggest change in the last 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, I guess probably the biggest change in the last couple of years is they've moved to disc brakes, and they've been standard caliper brakes up until that point. So finally they've moved over to disc brakes, and it took them a while to get there, because they thought there was quite a big danger in having a disc, you know, exposed on the wheel side, and especially when big crashes like we've seen in the Tour have just happened.
Crashes,
you know, when you've got this circling blade, you know, going through the air at the same time, it can happen. But no, certainly the bikes are getting lighter. You know, the average bike is, well, there is a limit of I think 6.8 kilos now in regards to how light a bike, and most bikes can be actually quite a lot lighter than that. But they, of course, with the enforced rules, they have to stay at 6.8.
Well, that would explain why my riding's no good. Disc brake bike. I need to get one of those. Hey, mate, the Olympic Games for you. What are you expecting? What are you expecting from the cyclists? What are we going to see?
We're going to see world records, that's for sure. In terms of what we're going to see from the Aussies, look, you could honestly put a blanket across them at the moment. Probably about half a dozen teams on both the men's and women's side. I think the sprint team has made a lot of big inroads in the last probably just in the last 6 months alone. We've gone from maybe being just outside the top 3 to being a clear second overall. But the teams pursuit teams could easily win in Tokyo. It's but as I say, it's almost like putting no one really knows. It's one of those situations where everyone's been training, in their silos in their countries, and it's really difficult to.
Right, I know I'm getting the wind up for the floor, but I've got to ask this question. I know they get pissy, and I don't mind for this one, but the gold medal, mate, did it change your life? Did it change your life? I mean, we see Ash Barty win Wimbledon, and they say it changes a tennis player's life. Did the gold medal change your life?
Look, it did in ways where, like, I always think of my life as before Sydney and after Sydney, and that's just how I look at it. It really did. At the time, it changed it because it just made me realise that everything I had dreamed of and believed in, that your dreams really can come true, and that it changed it in that mindset, I guess, of being able to believe in whatever you do, you can make come true.
Yeah, well done, mate. Appreciate your time too. Brett Aitken, our special guest, cycling royalty in the studio and here in South Australia. Stay with us.